What is up, guys? CM back again with another video. I know, I'm actually making videos again. Who would have thought? But we've got some news today, and or at least one piece of news. I wanted to do a video on this real quick because this came up. Well, this was posted on the forums a few days ago, almost a week ago now. And yeah, we're getting some more map changes coming into Supertest. And I figured, well, I might as well do a video on these because the last video I made was that 3-hour one on maps. So why not? So right here we're seeing super test changes for Ensk, and Ensk is a map that a lot of people don't really like because of how small it is. And I have my own problems with it, not because of the size so much, but because of the lack of really interesting options to really kind of navigate around the map. And which is often a common problem that I have with the map. Now, we're going to take a look at the mini map to begin with for the version of Ensk that they are testing here. And you can already see that there's a lot more to the map than our current version. You can see that they have taken most of the existing elements of the city and the existing areas, and they've just completely expanded everything. They've added more buildings to one side of the city. They've opened up the train lines. They've even added more to the field section. So let's have a look through some of the changes. Now, this is Ensk currently. You can see the red map border there. And then Ensk with these changes, look at that. That is a lot bigger, which is good. This means we've got more space to actually play around, more space to actually move. And we do actually have some interesting options for going in between different parts of the map. We'll get onto those in a moment. So this is the current field side of the map. As you can see, not very much that you've got to work with here. You've got a couple of buildings with a little bit of hard cover, and then you've got a nice big open field with a couple of buildings that you don't really have anything interesting to work with here, right? But then with the changes, you have quite a bit. You still have most of the same buildings here, and which is fine. But they've removed a lot of the small like barns and huts that were just scattered around the field in exchange for actual little roads that are kind of indented. So they're, you have some ups and downs. Actual, areas where you can go and hide, trying to avoid cover as you're moving from one place to another, which is good. That's one of my biggest complaints about maps currently. This is actually good. This actually has, cover that you can use. On top of that, you've got a little raised area in the middle here with a little water tower sort of thing. And clearly what the idea here is that mediums and light tanks are expected to contest this area and try and take this so that they can spot out any TDs that are further to the left or right, or even to counter people who go to that little part across the water there, across the river, and which we will get a better shot of in just a moment. Again, this is the current version of Ensk, and here we go, another angle to see from. You can see there's shallow areas here, and there's going to be another one on the other side, so you can get over here. And what advantage this offers? I reckon it's mostly going to be either scouting or for people trying to looking to get around maybe any stalemate in the middle of the field or stalemate in the city. Obviously, there's a couple of buildings on this side, a couple on the other. Yeah, they've not gone over the top on bushes either, which is nice to see, because if you add too many bushes, you get the problem that Malinovka currently faces, where pushing into them is just incredibly obnoxious. Or even trying to spot anyone that's kind of lurking in them is a bit obnoxious because they just have so much cover that they can just move a little bit and then you're not gonna see them. And so this is good. They've not gone over the top with this, which is nice to see. And when it comes to the bushes, there's some that you can use. They're in some interesting spots. You've got these bushes here, which are clearly aimed at countering people trying to peek around here, and could even be used to counter people who are peeking the top of the hill here if you angle right. But there is a downside to them, because if you pull too far back towards the corner here, you might get spotted by people peeking here. So there's upsides and downsides depending on how you're going to be using the bushes. Now there are some here as well. This allows you to sit up here and try and counter this side, or up here again. You've got some bushes that you can use, but they don't seem particularly overpowered from first inspection. Obviously, this is going through Supertest, so these might not come through as they are. Now we've got the other side of the field, and as it is currently, and this is what it'll look like after the changes. You can see that normally where you would have the flag area here, this particular spawn, you move back a bit, you've got a bunch of extra buildings here, you've got some more bushes, different cover, extends out this way. It's looking interesting. It looks like they're actually making interesting changes. This is more towards the center. And look at that. Currently, you can't go through any of these train cars at all. It's just straight up and down, apart from this lane here where you do have a couple of gaps here. And some tanks, if they're a little bigger in terms of their tracks, can sometimes climb over these like flatbed train cars here, but that's about it. So this is very, very interesting. There's not a lot of cover, but it does offer an alternative route in between the city and the field. This is good. Alternate routes around maps are good because it offers up ways to flow around the map. It means you're not going to have as many battles that are going to feel stagnant or stale, because you're going to have more ways for people to flow around the map, which is very important. I went over this a lot in my longer video on maps, where it just feels like they don't flow at the moment because there's a lot of wasted space, or space that's just completely shut off from getting from one part of the map to another. This is good, this is promising, but we're going to have to wait and see how it plays and what changes they make to it during this super test phase as well, and of course going into whatever common tests they do for this as well. But this is looking good so far. I actually like this. I do feel like they don't need to have it quite as open as this. Maybe what they could do is have like maybe a couple of angled train cars here and there, maybe a tank wreck or two, and but what I actually think might be the case is this actually might be in preparation for another random event that they might have planned for the map in the future, which to me makes a lot of sense, because if you're gonna create this big open area that is quite a big risk, like just suddenly making that change for the map suggests to me that they might be looking to try and have one of these random events, a bit like the one that they're going to be testing on Himmelsdorf, where the train is coming down the tracks and will get bombed, and you'll have the train cars scatter out to create cover. I wonder if they're going to do something similar to that here, but we will have to wait and see, guys. We'll have to wait and see. Again, we've got the main part of the city where currently this is where the heavy tanks like to go and brawl, and as we can see, it's been opened up quite a bit, and so they've kind of changed how a couple of the buildings look, and they've also, what they've done, they've added an extra little building here, taken away the larger buildings here. They've taken these two away completely, if you look. Now, what does this mean? This will mean that you'll no longer be able to side scrape around here, but instead you've got here, you've got hull down cover and the raised part around here, it looks like, and the same here. And it also looks as though, yeah, you've got, this is basically the same, this is the same, this is the same. However, this is now going to mean that if anyone tries to push too aggressively before before one team has an advantage, or before they really know what the enemy team are going to do, then this means that this is an area where you can get caught out. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because that can encourage you to go over here as well. Now, I think we get another look at this as well. But this is at least looking interesting. It opens it up a little bit. There's alternate routes again, and let's have another look further back. This is into the corner for this spawn, as you can see. This is where you currently have this spot where TDs like to sit and snipe down the main road here. Now, they do still have that position, but that position now has major downsides. Currently, this position doesn't really have any downsides, apart from, well, if you stay here too long, if your team is losing, you kind of just get cornered, but realistically, that's the only downside. And it's a very strong position. It shuts down a lot of attempts to actually push down this road in its current state. But now, if you're staying here and your team is, if they're getting slapped, you can have people come from either side. Now, you have to be a lot more aware of what tanks have crossed over to this side as well, which is good. That means that has a downside now, which is excellent. And looks like they've also expanded back this way as well. As you can see, they've added a few extra buildings around here. There we go. So this is it currently. And then, as you can see, they still have a couple of buildings here. You've got basically a mirror position here, which is good to see. That means TDs or people wanting to go hull down in their heavy tanks in a raised position have equal opportunities. It's not going to be like the be-all, end-all position. It's going to be useful for punishing people who are going to cross over from one side to the other for maybe a shot or two, but you're probably not going to get a ton of damage out of either of these positions unless someone gets tracked. Especially if they get perma-tracked. Now, as you can see, there's a couple of dips here. You've got the buildings to fight around. And not a ton of bushes either. So this is probably going to mean that snipey TDs like your Rheinmetall Borsig and your Swedish TDs are still going to struggle a little bit on this map. But let's face it, if Wargaming tried to make every map cater to every tank in the game, then that would be a next to impossible task. So it definitely looks like they're going down the route of this map, still favoring mediums and heavies, which is fine. And your more heavily armored TDs, the ones that play a bit closer to heavies, like the T30, the T110E4, the Minotauro line, and the Jagdpanzer line, the Object 268 version 4 line, and and even like the T103, the premium tier 8 turreted tank destroyer. This map feels like it's still going to be catered towards those more heavily armored vehicles, or your mediums that maybe have a little bit of armor, or just mediums in general. And I think that's all the pictures we get at the moment, but certainly looking interesting, in my opinion. So definitely, this is one to keep an eye out for. It is promising, like I say, but I would love to see this come to common tests at some point this year, because I would actually like to see a lot more map changes. So I'm gonna say for now, this looks promising, Wargaming. This is I like what I'm seeing. Just please don't mess it up. And what are my criticisms of these changes so far? It's hard to say at the moment. I think if I'm going to have any part of the map that I'm not going to enjoy, it might well be this side. I do feel like we've got a lot of wasted space down here with the water. I do think we could have just had the river going in the background, and we could have just had this as like, a flatlands area, like a beach area, sand that you can drive around on, maybe even just, drain the river, have it like where you've got some really shallow water to drive through that doesn't really hinder your mobility as much. I don't think you really needed it to be, really deep in some areas. I do also feel like if they added, the odd little couple of rocks here and there sticking out of the river, like maybe that had been, like that had become visible after the river drying a little bit or something like that, or at low tide or something, that could be interesting. That could give people like an opportunity to not only go over here but then try and traverse the river, which is make that a bit more risky, but then have like a rock or something that they can hide behind. So definitely there's a little more that they could have done here, I feel like, but it's in the terms of what we've got right now, I feel like it's a fairly minor nitpick. Um, as far as other segments of this side of the map, I do kind of feel like and they could maybe have added like they could probably have extended this bush a tiny bit. I don't think they could do much with that because you don't want any one bush position to be too strong. And I do also feel like these buildings look destructible on that little bit here, so I do feel like maybe have like a rock or two over here, or like just make it so then those buildings cannot be destroyed. Um, it does also look like this area will be hotly contested. I do feel like there should be like a more easily approachable road here. So if we go back a couple of screenshots, you can see this is the main road here. It does look like you can still go up this way and then kind of up and over this kind of little, like this little ridge with the trees on it on either side. But I do kind of feel like they should have just made like a little road going like here. You know, just make the ridge a little smaller, but have another road going here. Maybe an extra building or something either side of a little small hut or bunker or something, either side of this water tower, just so you got a little more hardcover for people to play around in here. As far as the rest of this side of the map goes, I am fairly happy with it. I do feel like, again, that it could be a couple extra small buildings, maybe destructible ones either side, but again, we are in testing. They might add more, they might take away some. I feel like adding more is not too many, but like, you know, maybe add a couple of here, a couple here, maybe one here or here. You know, don't go over the board with, like, don't go over the top with them, but, you know, add a couple. Maybe add like a little windmill or something over here, and then, like, I don't know, a couple of houses here or something. And that's pretty much it. As far as what I can easily see, and actually moving back over to the city, I wonder if they could maybe add a couple of like wrecked train cars here along, or like a wrecked like buses or trucks or wrecked tanks along here, just so then you've got a little bit of cover going from one side to the other. It looks like they still kept these windows here and here for this side as well, whilst keeping this one here. I do feel like what they should really do is have this building here be bombed out and just have these two as like similar positions, because I do kind of feel like not having that mirrored gives this side a little bit of an advantage in the city for preventing people uh pushing here and here, and just to give each side something equivalent. It doesn't have to be perfect, and you could even argue that you could just block these up completely and make that the same as this area, and I think that would be actually fine. And otherwise, I don't have many complaints about the city here. And looking at this side, I do feel like, yeah. So it looks like we've got a little road back here, right by the map border there, going from one group of buildings to the other, and then going from here. Actually, is this no? So there's yeah, actually, yeah, that looks like there's a little gap there. Looks like there's a little gap here as well, but you can't really drive down it, but you can shoot through there maybe. Again, it's kind of hard to tell from this angle. But it looks like there might only be one road in there. I mean, it looks like there's a gap here as well, but it is kind of hard to tell. I would like there to be at least two little roads going between each of these groups of buildings. I would also say that maybe have like a gap here and a gap here for people to go down. So then, instead of having to come like across this way, you could go straight that way as an option, and then have the same here. Maybe even going as far as to put a couple of wrecks around this little crossroads here. A couple of tank wrecks would be interesting to put around there. They might even do that with the dynamic cover thing, and but we will have to wait and see. These areas back up and down here in the corners, I'm not too worried about those. They look fine to me, and it does seem like there's a little more in terms of building cover on this corner over here, but it doesn't seem particularly consequential. Other than maybe a couple of these buildings here getting towards the cap circle, because it's a little more open over there, but at the same time, you still have a couple of buildings here, and then you've got another one over just out of shot here. So again, I'm not too worried about this side. It looks fine, and I don't have too many problems with it. What I do like, by the way, is that these extended sightlines are gonna be. I reckon that you're gonna see a couple of TDs here trying to shoot down to this corner here, because it looks like you're gonna get a sightline straight over to this corner right here. So something like a STRV could sit here and snipe here. But yeah, that's it from me on this one, guys. And I'm looking forward to seeing more changes like this. Please, Wargaming, because the maps, I feel like, are part of the contributing problem towards one-sided matches. It's not the entire problem, obviously. We do have other things that are contributing towards it, particularly in the matchmaking. But that is a topic for another video at another time. So I'd just like to thank everyone for watching, and I will see you guys on the next one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. Peace.